Remember the game Chutes and Ladders as a kid? How much fun it was to play until you hit the one spot and the dice, really ended up not liking you. And it was not in your favor and you hit the chute and you slid back down to the bottom. How often that happens to us in business, even. But without those failures along the way, we wouldn't be where we are today. I've heard multiple stories from clients of mine over the years. I actually had one not too long ago, calls me later in the evening and says, "Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my financial statements. It looks like everything's great, but I know it's not going right. We're up X dollars from last year. The team is busier than ever. We're shipping product out, but it's taking us a lot longer to close out our books. I'm not really understanding who's doing what, this and that." And that is a conversation I have with a lot of people. It's not unusual that you get to some version of, hey, we're almost there every month. We're not quite there, we're almost there. As your business grows, you get to be so proud of what you built and the team. Every time a business grows fast, you get to be, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of what I've done. And underneath that pride, sometimes it starts to get stuck in the way. There is this low dread that can pop in where you can feel the wheels starting to a little bit wobble off the side. And that's usually a part that, most people don't know about it. People don't really tell them about, hey, when you hit these first big revenue milestones, you're going to be exhausted. And a lot of times you're exhausted because the cart is starting to come off the tracks just a little bit. So often as we grow, it's so exciting, but then when we do get to this point, it actually feels like a prison sentence. And I want to help make sure that you don't feel like that, because I even did in my own business when I first started. So here are a couple of tools that might help you be able to not fully walk down that path. And that usually comes around to, how did you build the foundation of your business? I always overemphasize with everybody I come into contact with, you have to have a good foundation. Your foundation needs to be comprised of systems and processes of how things are going to go, as well as a plan of, as I hit certain milestones, I need to have X in place. Because if you don't, that's where the cart starts to wobble off the tracks a bit, because you're doing too much, or your team is doing too much, and things aren't getting done in a timely manner. So there are 3 things that come to mind, and one being, you can't hire your way out of a broken process. You can't automate yourself out of a messy process, and you can't let every department just start fending for itself. How many times it's stressful when you start thinking about this, and our instinct is, as soon as something becomes stressful, that we just hire more people, because that's the solution that we tell ourselves that will fix the problem. But really, it's a process that's broken, and no matter how many people you throw into it, it's still going to be a broken process. Whether that's closing your books on time, whether that's going after and collecting bills, whether that is making sure that packages are out the door. And yes, while they all sound simple, that throwing more people into this will fix the problem, it doesn't. I've seen this firsthand, actually. One of my clients had about 80 employees, retail store, kind of like a Walgreens. And their whole thing was more people. It will get prescriptions filled. It will get people through the cash register faster. Well, what happened in that is then you got people being lazy because they saw other people that were actually picking up the slack or working a lot harder, and you were just back to the same old problem. There were too many people sitting around and not taking action. And so that's one thing that can happen if you start throwing too many people in the mix is, well, now you're just making a different problem. Actually, the process still didn't get fixed. I got too many people standing around and still nothing's getting done. It gets really expensive too. Your bottleneck didn't disappear, and now your payroll's going up. You're having to pay for something because now there's just this added illusion that you're improving a process because more people are there. And purchasing a 6-figure ERP system or any other type of software on a whim because you think that's going to solve a problem isn't going to do that. You've got to really make sure that whatever you're bringing into it, the problem is solved first before that can go in. Great example is your data not clean. And so every time you look at your financials, you don't know whether to trust them. If you move to a new system, you're just dumping all of that data in, and now you've got the same problem and a higher expense with the software to cover the same tasks that you were doing. How many times I see founders say, oh, you know what, QuickBooks is the problem. Okay, well, it may be. We all know QuickBooks has its limitations, but moving to another solution where you're paying a lot of money and it isn't set up right, or if you're just dumping in your old processes and your old ways, nothing is actually getting fixed. You just replicated those same bad processes with more zeros after it. We also look at the software as that fix because automation, and we all want to have automation, and certain solutions we have today don't automate. But you can't necessarily automate that mess either because, again, if your data is not correct, just putting automation in there is just muddying up the waters and it's not ever fixing the solution. And now, again, you've paid for software with extra zeros behind it and you can't automate something because you don't have the process in place to do it. The last part of that is you don't want every department in your organization all of a sudden becoming siloed and taking matters into their own hands because it can't be done collectively. So if they see there's bad processes somewhere, they might start building their own or getting their own tools in place. And now that doesn't talk to anybody else in there in the rest of the organization. And you actually are having whole different set of process problems. You don't want to overreact when you're in this state of mind where everything's a little bit chaotic or you're anxious about the next decision to make. And when that happens, usually the worst decisions are made. And I always think about this quote this guy said one time, when you get scared, you get stupid. And it's true. You start making kind of ludicrous decisions along the way. So if you keep that in mind, when you are fearful or in this state of mind of I don't really know what to do, don't hire somebody unless you can actually say how they're going to add value to the position that they're going to have and to the overall use in the business. Don't go automating things just to automate things because that's what everybody else is doing. And don't let departments start to get siloed, and make sure you have that added communication where everybody's coming together and you're looking at what's happening and building a plan from there.